Welcome everyone to the second edition of Missing in Action Conversations. Today we're with Dave Hill, who is, I am working with Dave to try and bring this book project together. It was Dave who I text immediately when I had the idea about the book project. And it was Dave that went, yes, let's do this. So without him, none of this would be happening. Dave has a fair amount of experience working with veterans, turning up and listening and being with them and talking to veterans. But I'll let Dave talk about that. So, Dave, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Let's split that. You had the initial idea with the book, and it was very easy to say yes to because it made a lot of sense. So it's the pair of us, I think. You deserve probably as much, if not more, credit than me with the amount of work you've done on it so far. But to answer your question, who am I? I'm a former rifleman. I did 17 years in the British Army. As a commissioned officer, started as a platoon commander and left as a company commander. For those that makes sense to. I left the army about 8 years ago, and almost from the off with during my resettlement, started getting phone calls from guys that I'd worked with in the past who were reaching out because they were in a bit of trouble in whatever guise that took, but they just reached out to say help. And so that's how this whole journey started for me. And since then, during the last 8 years, I've been doing various civilian jobs. I worked for Amazon for a year, and I've been working for what was Standard Life Investments and is now Standard Life Aberdeen for the last 6, nearly 7 years in Edinburgh. But on the side of that, I've been having conversations with a group of veterans and service personnel that have been looking for something different. Something that's hopefully going to help them see the world in a slightly different light because of whatever's going on in their minds. And I've been doing that for about 8 years. The first 3 or so years of that completely guided by what felt right in the moment because I didn't have anything else to offer. And then having come across the 3 principles about 5 years ago, saw something really quite powerful in there that I could see helping at a much greater level, and decided to do a little bit of training in that with One Thought down in London. Did a 6-month program with them, and quickly realized that I couldn't hurt anybody with this understanding, and have just been taking it each day at a time, seeing what shows up ever since then. And that's what brought us together, working on a project with a couple of other 3 principles, members of the 3 principles community that wanted to do something for veterans, and we recorded a series of videos over about 2 years that Paul very kindly edited for us. And I'm sure we'll cover that a little bit later on, but that's what brought Paul and I together in the first place, as well as the desire to help people that we care about. So that's how this whole conversation started and how this book idea started.
Yes, the missing link for veterans, which can be found on the Missing in Action website. There is actually a page for that. Go and have a look at that if you have the opportunity. Whether you're a veteran or not, it's actually really, really interesting and insightful. It goes without saying. So, working with veterans and service personnel, what are the common themes?
It's a good question, Paul. And like most common themes, they crop up a lot, but it's mostly around self-judgment, and that's what stops a lot of people putting their hand up, speaking out, saying I'm struggling. And we've all been there, we all understand what that's like. Having been part of military teams of various different sizes and guises, you don't want to be the person that lets the team down. And most of that letting the team down bit actually comes from within. That, you know, that feeling of doubt and insecurity or anxiety about not being able to keep up physically or mentally or whatever it happens to be, when you actually boil it down, is coming from within us. But we don't understand that, and that's what, you know, that's what this whole process is about, is trying to shift that and help people become aware that is how the world is created moment to moment for them. So yeah, the first one is around self-judgment and not wanting to let the team down, or feeling unworthy because they aren't able to cope. That individual might not be able to feel that they're coping with what's going on, be that right there in the present moment or with things that they've been through in the past. So that's one. Another theme that I'm seeing is a reliance on whatever it might be, something, you know, eating, drinking, excessive exercise, taking drugs, you know, all of these things that people feel that are going to help them change the way that they're feeling right now. And to a degree, that sort of works. It does for a period of time until it wears off, or until something drastic goes wrong, or until you realize that it's not actually helping and it's then just become a habit. And that's, you know, that's a dangerous thing, but it's perfectly natural, and you can see how people fall into that trap of trying to find something to take the pain away, whatever that might be. Again, that's a misunderstanding of where our joy and happiness comes from. You know, we've got an idea in society these days that we need to collect things, we need to have a certain degree of income, or what, you know, the right people around us, or the right types of experience to make us feel a certain way. Not realizing that actually it is our internal relationship with the thoughts we're having around those things that create that experience for us. It's never the things themselves. And that's, you know, that's the game changer that we're trying to point people to, is if we can understand that our experience is coming from our thinking in the moment, 100% of the time, there is no other way we can experience that. Then it's no longer about collecting things to make us feel better, or creating a set of circumstances that in theory should allow us to achieve a certain set of things. It's, well, I'm just me in this moment with the thoughts that I've got in the situation that I'm faced with. And that could be a really dangerous and scary situation and I could thrive, or it could be a really scary situation and I don't thrive. Well, they're both possibilities. They are both things that could happen, along with thousands of other possibilities in that moment. The same is true when everything seems to be going swimmingly, when we think everything is lined up, we've got all the things that we need. We could really enjoy it, or we can have a miserable time. And we hear about that all the time. You just have to look at, you know, at the press and sort of wider media of those in society that seem to have it all and are still wrestling with their own mental health, for whatever reason that might be. It is never about the stuff. It is absolutely about our relationship with how we're thinking moment to moment. And that's amazing, because actually the answer to our problems lies within us, if we're prepared to look in that direction. And that's the gift we can give to each other at any moment, no matter how much we know about the world or not. We can find solace in the company of someone else. And that's, you know, that's the idea behind the Missing in Action book that we're bringing together, and the Missing Link set of recordings that we've done, is that there is opportunity in any moment for you to see something differently, and that's, you know, that's amazingly powerful when people start to see that.
I'll just pick up on something you said there. How do you access such clarity of mind when your mind is overtaken by habits that are unhealthy, by thinking that it's unhealthy, how do you work with a service person or a veteran to try and get them to the place where they access that clarity of mind?
That's a great question. Well, the biggest thing that I've noticed is showing up with as open a mind as I possibly can. That's certainly how it started off for me, because I didn't have anything else to offer. So when people phoned up and I go, wow, okay, I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. But what I do know is it's taken a hell of a lot of courage for this person to reach out in the first place, and they think that there's something that I could potentially do or say that might be of benefit. So let's have faith in that trust, whether I trust it or not, and see where that takes us. Because what I have noticed over time is, again, it comes back to that not wanting to let the team down. People don't put their hand up normally, especially to the people around them that they care about, because they are worried that those other people are going to worry about them. And that feeling of worrying is something we pick up on as human beings. We pick up on all kinds of emotions that others feel. That's part of what being a human being is. That's how we connect with each other, and it's amazing. But it's also a bit of a double-edged sword. So, I know that in the past I haven't told people things because I've worried that they're going to worry. And when I have told them, they have worried, and that's proved the point that, well, this is why I didn't want to share it. And I've tried to rein it back in. But thankfully, at that point, it's now out in the open, and we can see where that goes. But I realized that when I have felt worried in the past, that hasn't actually helped anybody. It's not been anything I've been in control of as such. But I did think it was as a result of the circumstances I was in, and therefore was out of my control. What I now see is worry is a feeling I get from my thinking around what's going on. And what I've noticed and now believe is that that's unhelpful for me and unhelpful for the individual I'm speaking to. So I can't stop myself from worrying, but I can notice that I am, that I'm worrying in a certain situation. And from that go, okay, well, that's not going to help me and that's not going to help them. So let's try not to, let's just see what happens if worry wasn't on the equation, in the equation, and see where that takes us. And that brings, hopefully, me back to a sort of an element of clarity in my own mind. And for the individual I'm speaking to, that is, has a mind that's racing at 100 miles an hour with all kinds of thoughts, whatever they might be, sometimes fairly dark ones. Well, they're expecting a worried response. That's what the norm is for them. That's what they're expecting to see. And when they don't, and they're just confronted with someone that cares and is there for them and is turning up without any judgment on the situation about the fact that they might be thinking suicidally or whatever it happens to be, well, that makes them sort of do a check pace and go, well, that's not normal. I'm not expecting that. What is that? Sometimes that makes them angry. Why aren't you worrying about me? This is a really dangerous thing I'm talking about. Well, that's fine. That's good. Let's talk about that. And it allows that conversation to develop. Or they might just get curious and go, whoa, everybody I've spoken to about this in the past has been worried about me. And that's natural. That's what we've been told to expect. Dave's not. What's that about? And that element of curiosity is the sort of key to seeing that there are all kinds of possibilities in the way that we can look. So it's never anything specific that I do or don't do. What I try to do is just turn up, be the best version of me that I possibly can, and acknowledge that if my thinking is elsewhere, that's what's going on. Because actually, if I don't feel present for that individual, if they're picking up on the fact that my mind is elsewhere, well, they're not going to get anything, or we aren't collectively going to get something from that. But if I front up and say, I've got some thinking going on at the moment. There's some stuff that's getting in my way of being in this conversation. Don't worry, I know it will pass. But if I seem a bit absent-minded, try and get me back in the room, mentally back in the room, because I'm just as human as everybody else. But by being open about how that feels, there's an opportunity for the person I'm speaking to go, oh, right, it's not just me then. It's not just me that gets lost in my thoughts. And it's fascinating. It is absolutely fascinating because it's in every facet of our lives, be that work or home or sport, whatever. We can get completely embroiled in what's going on in our heads to the detriment of everything else around us, or to the real benefit of what's going on, because it's what's happening, where our mind is in this present moment and enjoying what's going on, or dealing with what's going on. Well, that's fascinating. If we can keep people focused at, is this relevant now? Is this serving me in this moment? Well, if it's not, that's okay. There's nothing wrong in that. You can't stop it, but acknowledging the fact that this isn't relevant to what's going on in my world right now. Okay, well, fine. The next thought that comes along might help me in this moment. That'll be good. And there's nothing I need to do to make that change. It just happens naturally. As much as my mind getting caught on something that's irrelevant to this conversation, which happens to all of us all of the time. But if we see that each of those thoughts has no more value than the next, that they're all neutral, then we can let them flow through our minds without really caring too much about them. But yeah, as you know, we will get caught on them occasionally. That's fine. When we see that we're caught on them, that's when clarity comes back and the situation changes. And that's true for all of us.
How long, in your experience, does it take for someone to start seeing that it's their thought in the moment that is causing much of the issues, many of the issues that they are experiencing?
Again, that's a sort of how long is a piece of string thing. What we're talking about here isn't some piece of intellectual understanding around how the process works, because logically it makes sense, actually, if you think about it. Yes, my taste buds are involved in me tasting something, but actually it's the thought going through my mind of whether I like that or not. And that's why we have different experiences of the food that we eat. Some people love some things and others hate it. Well, it's not the food, it's their thought about it, actually, that they're having an issue with. And it might be because it tastes revolting for them. And that makes perfect sense. But over time, our tastes change, and so can our opinions about that. We take that as read because actually that's not a scary part of our lives. But the things that feel close to home, we tend to form more attachments to, and they then become big issues. And we don't want to defend them, but they become habitual in that sense. We expect them to feel a certain way. So for some people, it happens really, really quickly, and for others, it takes years. And there's no right or wrong in either of those. But what we're trying to point to is understanding what that feels like. We're trying to point people to whether something feels right or wrong, or comfortable or uncomfortable is probably a better way of putting it, because right and wrong sounds judgmental. If we're feeling uncomfortable about something, it's because we don't see it quite yet. If we're feeling comfortable about something, then we probably do. And it's that quiet little voice inside us that is going, yeah, that's just noise in your head. This is the path that's gonna help you. That's what we're trying to point people towards, is that quiet voice that is gently and comfortably pointing us in a better direction. Unfortunately, the noisy bit in our head tends to drown that out, or has a counter argument to it. So, I certainly know there have been instances in my life where what has felt right for me, I haven't done, because the voice in my head is saying, This is what people expect you to do. This is what's expected for your career. This is what's expected for your family. You know, that path, that's not wise. But all of that noise felt uncomfortable. But it was all evolving around judgment, and my judgment about what other people thought, not necessarily what other people actually thought. Because how can I ever know that? Well, when I saw how that worked, why would I ever then listen to the uncomfortable voices? It happens, still happens occasionally now, but I understand why that works. When I'm feeling low, I am going to start hoovering up unpleasant thoughts to try and help validate my low state. The quiet voice is still there going, don't listen to it, don't listen to it. And there's that sort of pull in both directions. Well, I know that the noisy stuff will go away when I start to see things a little bit more clearly. And sometimes it's because I haven't seen it yet. I haven't learnt it yet. You know, I see it with my youngest all the time. She has a love-hate relationship with maths. She hates it most of the time, and other times she absolutely loves it. And at the moment we're in a love state because algebra is working for her. Brilliant. Well, that's because she's now seen it, how it works for herself, not how the teachers taught, do this, this, and this, and you'll get that answer. She can do that, but she doesn't understand why. That's when she hates it. When it goes, oh, it's that thing that we're trying to point people to. It's that, I can feel that now. That makes sense. That's what this is about. So I know there's no one particular thing that's ever going to help anybody, but by continually pointing them in a direction that says, just have a look over there and see what you see. Don't do don't do what I do or try and copy me, but have a look in the direction I'm looking and see if you can see something similar. I'm not asking anybody to believe anything at all about what I say. All I'm encouraging them to do is try and look in a direction with as much curiosity and as much of an open mind as they can muster, and notice when they can't. That's it. It is that simple. And what I'm seeing is that when people really start to see that, it's not just the thing that's felt so solid for them, so fixed for them, that their life has revolved around, that changes. It's their view of almost every part of their life. And sometimes there'll be a bit that they don't see it in. I'm having a conversation with someone at the moment whose mind has just gone, wow, this is amazing for all of this stuff, but this bit over here, I don't see how it works here. Well, that's fine. Just knowing that it doesn't fit yet, doesn't quite drop into place, that's cool, because in that lies the ability to be curious about it, going, well, if it's true over here, it probably should be true over there too. I just haven't seen it yet. Well, that's cool. Let's keep exploring. Let's keep searching. Let's see what it is that we're stuck on there and see what happens next, rather than, oh, no, it works for that, but not for that. If we get into that mindset, then we haven't actually got there yet. Not that there's anywhere to get to, because where we're trying to point people to is back to the feeling inside them that mental health resides within them. They are mentally healthy. It's just their relationship with that cloud of unpleasant thoughts that are stuck in their head at the moment.
Okay, so you spoke about an awareness, maybe even a light bulb moment some people get when they go, oh yeah, okay, I get that. Is that it then? Are they suddenly, they can, in your experience, are they able to apply that to every situation, or can they be knocked back to maybe the start, but somewhere near there?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Again, like I said a second ago, it's if we see it that it is the truth, that it spans our whole existence, whether we're feeling comfortable or uncomfortable, then that's cool. That's that understanding, knowing that feeling. If it's true in all circumstances, and we see that, great. That's really helpful. But it's not a. There's sort of two words of caution. It's not a cure, because what we're pointing people to is a mental health that resides in all of us 100% of the time. Even when it feels like it's not there, it's there. So we are trying to help people see that for themselves. And when they believe that, that's great. That's really cool. However, with that comes the possibility that we will get ambushed by our thoughts at times. They come into our consciousness faster than we have the ability to catch on. And sometimes we will get a bumpy ride as a result. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of being a human being. So even if I am feeling low, that's me having a human experience of my thinking in the moment. I might not be able to see that straight away, but if I understand that there is no other way that I can experience the world around me, then at some point I'll go, oh yeah, I'm doing this. I'm the one that's making me feel the way I'm feeling at the moment. Oh, okay. Oh, well, it's not all of those things that I'm cross about or upset with or scared of. It's my interpretation of my thinking about that right now. And at times, that can be really, really useful. The fight, flight, freeze response is there for a reason. That the ability to feel stress is to mobilize us, to get us to do something. If it's present in that moment, if there's something scary to deal with in that moment, brilliant. It's serving you really well. It's saying, get out of Dodge, or stop, that bus is going to run you over if you keep going, whatever it happens to be. But if it's not linked to the present moment, then it's stress around our thinking in that moment. And if the thinking isn't relevant to that moment, well, okay, I'm feeling stressed at the moment, but I can't be hurt by that. I can get lost in it, but I can't be hurt by it. And then it becomes less of a scary ride. And then it's just having a human experience. And I can give an example of that for me from 2-3 weeks ago. So I'm recovering from a stroke I had in October. I get quite a lot of fatigue at times, especially when I'm at work, because I'm constantly jumping from meeting to meeting, and my brain is having to try and keep up with multiple different threads as I'm bouncing between them. So it's perfectly natural and normal. But when I'm feeling tired, I've got that magnets turned on to find uncomfortable thoughts to help me validate that. And 2 weeks ago, I felt I needed to quit my job. I couldn't see how I could possibly be adding value. Thankfully, there was enough of me that knew that wasn't helping me. Didn't change my experience of it, but I knew it wasn't serving me and it wasn't the answer, no matter how urgent it felt in that moment. So I suppose that's where we're trying to get people to see, is that we are going to have an experience that bounces up and down. That's what being a human being is all about. But it's knowing that there's no weight to any of that, and to try and acknowledge, if I'm feeling uncomfortable, it's either because I'm physically in danger right now and I need to do something about it, or I'm lost in some thought that's not helpful for me, or I haven't quite seen something yet. So from your question about, can people get a light bulb moment and go, oh, wow, and then crash? Absolutely they can, because they're thinking, oh, well, I can see how it applies in this part of my life, but it certainly doesn't apply here. If it doesn't apply here, then it's not real. So if we're in the mindset of this is something that applies or doesn't apply, the application is required. I need to do something to make that happen. Well, we haven't quite got there yet, but that's okay, because we're on a journey. We're learning as we go all the time, and we all have blind spots. I have blind spots. Everybody has blind spots, and the reason that I get caught by them is because I can't see them until I do. And when I do, oh, well, that changes, and then there'll be another one. There'll always be another one, but that's okay, because when I'm feeling uncomfortable, I can go, okay, right, is this getting in the way of me living in this moment right now? Yes. Is it relevant to right now? No. Okay. Well, I just haven't seen it yet. That's okay. Let's see where that takes us. So if you find yourself understanding it to a degree and then getting caught by stuff, that's okay. That's normal and natural. It just means that whatever that subject matter is, you haven't allowed the curiosity to sort of get into there and shine a light, going, okay, well, how does my experience of this relate to what the conversation I've been part of, because it's just become something else solid to hang on to. But if it was, if our thinking around that was true, then it would be true for everybody. And we all know that no two people have the same experience of anything, no matter how close those individuals are to that moment in time. They'll both be thinking different things, and that's where the wiggle room starts with things that are solid and stuck. If it feels solid and stuck or urgent, it probably isn't either of those things, and it just means we haven't seen it yet. That's it. And that just, that allows us to continue exploring.
Brilliant. The missing link for veterans. Can you just let people know about that resource, who was involved, and what it is, and what it's set out to achieve?
Cool. Yeah, we'll do. It was a project between myself, Dr. Bill Pettit, Judy Sedgman, Brad Gallup, and Affair Meyer. Bill and Judy have been in the Three Principles world for sort of 30 plus years, and are wonderful human beings. Brad and Affair are both veterans. Both have struggled personally with PTSD and various things associated with that. And the five of us wanted to do something for the veteran community that was freely available, that didn't require anybody to log into anything or do anything to access, that the people could use anonymously. Because if you remember, from the start of our conversation, quite a common theme is people don't want to put their hands up because they don't want to be seen as weak or that they're letting the side down. But they're searching, and we wanted to have something that could be shared around completely freely. So we created a series of, I think it's about 20 videos. It spans about 9 hours worth of conversation, but we're reading a book called The Missing Link by a chap called Sydney Banks, who came up with the Three Principles back in the 70s. And the book's wonderful. It's full of wonderful little nuggets of wisdom that have relevance to every single human being on this planet. It's not just for veterans at all. This is a human being sport. It just happens to be we wanted to do a project that was aimed at the veteran community because we're all passionate about helping a group of people that have put themselves in harm's way for our greater good, and now that they're home and safe, are struggling in some cases to survive, which is really, really heartbreaking. The reason that I got so involved in all of this, I got fed up with seeing people taking their lives when they were safe at home. That was soul destroying, and I wanted to do something about it. So that's how I got more involved in all of this. Bill came up with the idea about 2.5 years ago, and we started meeting monthly and recording our conversations. And we're not asking people to believe anything or do anything other than if they're interested, take a look, have a listen, and see where that takes them from a point of curiosity. Not to see how it compares with what they know already, but to see what changes and what's different, and what truth that they can see in that. So that's basically the idea behind the project. It was to create a resource that people could tap into completely anonymously, and to share freely amongst themselves. So if it resonates with you, share it with your friends, whether you think that it'll stick with them or not. If you think it might be of value to someone, pass it on, because you never know what someone else is going to see in the conversation you have with them. You might be talking about something entirely differently, and they see something amazing that transforms the way they see the world. And that's the beauty of this type of conversation. you start off seeing where it gets, with a rough agenda of what you think might happen, and something completely blindsides you that either blows one of you away or both of you away that you weren't expecting to see. That's that wonderful adage of every day's a school day. There is always something exciting to see in a conversation with whoever it happens to be, from whatever standpoint they're coming from. I'm loving being able to be in the world these days with that mindset, going, oh wow, where could this take us? What's going to be around the next corner? It's almost like having a completely blank map, and as you go through the day, colouring it in, seeing where you get to, and then knowing that the next day you've got a completely blank map again, or that you can go back and rub a bit out and I've got that bit wrong and start again. It's amazing, and yeah, it has the ability to connect people that in a way that I've not seen anything else can do, and it just comes from a place of love and wanting to connect and to be there for each other, and that's the greatest gift we can give anybody anytime, whether they're a veteran or not. And while this story, the book we're putting together at the moment, the Missing Link for Veterans, is aimed at the military community, it absolutely has far wider importance for the world as it's for all human beings. This is how we all experience the world, no matter where we were born, how we were brought up, what we believe, because those beliefs are based on our thinking about a certain set of circumstances, and that can change in any moment, and that's what's so cool about this.
So if a veteran or serving person is watching this and wants to doesn't want to put their hand up, but wants to perhaps have a conversation with yourself, how would they get in contact?
Cool. Well, I've set up a small coaching practice called Simplicity in Mind. So that I've got a website which is www.simplicityinmind.co.uk, or you can email me at dave@simplicityinmind.co.uk. The work that I do with veterans, I do for free, absolutely for free. Simplicity in Mind does do work wider than that. I do work with private clients and occasionally with corporates, which I charge, and that allows me to create the space to do the work with veterans. So it's a mixed bag, but it's about starting a conversation and seeing where that goes. In the fullness of time, I think I'll end up running a veterans-wide monthly call. Again, that there will be no pressure involved in that. I'm hoping it becomes a conversation, but if people want to dip in and out of that and just listen, that's absolutely fine. I've got no dramas with that, and I'd never put anyone on the spot. I'm running a pilot of that for Riflemen at the moment, and we meet on the final Monday of every month at 7:00 in the evening. And so if there's any Riflemen out there that are interested, then again, drop me a line and I can send you the link to that. As I said, in the fullness of time, I want to expand that. But the guys at the moment are wanting to keep it within the regimental family, and I'll honour that. So I may end up doing 2 calls. It's just juggling time to get to that point.
Dave, I think we've reached the end of this conversation. To keep it within the time sort of scales that we set out, just want to say thank you for taking the time to talk to us, and hopefully see you soon.
No worries, Paul. Thanks very much indeed.